So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time, around 20 minutes. Now, the purpose of this lecture series is to cover your current affairs on a daily basis, because current affairs form a very important portion of your civil services examination, whether that's prelims or mains. Around 40 to 50% of your questions are directly or indirectly related to current affairs. Therefore, you cannot choose to ignore current affairs. And you need to cover current affairs on a daily basis also, because if you really want to etch these current affairs permanently in your memory, you have to cover them on a daily basis. But the problem is that you cannot spend your entire day covering current affairs. You cannot spend your entire day reading the newspaper. Therefore, to help you out, we have come out with this lecture series in which we cover the important news items, which are important from the perspective of your civil services examination. Important news items every day within 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so you just have to spend 20 to 25 minutes and you're done for the day. Your current affairs would get covered, and that too on a daily basis. All right. Now, the thing is, you don't have to just spend these 20 to 25 minutes watching this lecture. You have to spend some other 20 to 25 minutes also. What am I talking about? Let me clarify that. You see, after watching this lecture, you need to revise this lecture also, because if you really want to fix these current affairs in your memory, you need that revision. And you can revise these current affairs from the notes, the PDF file of these notes that we'll provide to you on our Telegram channel. Okay, so this lecture's notes or PDF file shall be available on our Telegram channel. All you have to do is click on a link given in the comment section below this video. Okay, I've shared a link for my Telegram channel. You just have to click on that link. It'll take you to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download the notes for this lecture. So spend 20 to 25 minutes watching this lecture and another 20 to 25 minutes revising this lecture. And in about 40 to 50 minutes, you'll be done for the day. Your entire day is free. You can do whatever you want in that day. Okay, as far as current affairs are concerned, you don't have to worry about them at all. All right. So this is the purpose of this lecture series. Therefore, make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. All right. Okay. So let's begin this lecture starting with the topics we shall cover in this particular lecture, which news items I have shortlisted from today's newspaper. So in total, we'll be covering 4 topics. Number 1 is the topic related to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Nigeria. Okay. So we'll be talking about India-Nigeria relationship, what significance it has for us, and what is the future. Okay, what is the way forward for this relationship? So we'll talk about this. Then recently, off the coast of Odisha, India has tested a long-range hypersonic missile. And with that test, India joins the elite club of USA, Russia, and China, because only these 3 countries have hypersonic missiles. So India will join this elite club of 3, now soon to be 4. Okay, so we'll talk about this long-range hypersonic missile. We'll also talk about what hypersonic missiles are. All right. Then there was this article in the explained section of Hindu as well as Indian Express related to greenhouse gases. As you all know, a climate summit is going on in Baku, Azerbaijan. Therefore, global warming, climate change, greenhouse gases are in the news. So we'll be talking about what are greenhouse gases through this article. Okay. And in the end, we'll talk about Haka by New Zealand lawmakers. So a legislator in the New Zealand's parliament performed a traditional dance form called Haka to protest against a bill being presented in New Zealand's parliament. So what is Haka? What sort of traditional dance is this? Who performs this traditional dance? We'll talk about all these things. Okay, so we'll be talking about all these 4 topics. Topic number 1 is related to international relations, which is part of your GS2 syllabus. This is related to internal security, which is part of GS3 syllabus. This is related to greenhouse gases, is related to environment, which is again part of GS3. And this is related to culture, but it's not Indian culture. But nonetheless, it is related to international relations, common general knowledge. All right? Okay. So let's start this discussion. Let's start today's lecture with topic number 1, which is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Nigeria. Okay. So basically, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on his 3-country tour. Okay. The first country that he will be visiting or he has visited is Nigeria. Then his next stop will be Brazil for the G20 summit. And then next he will visit Guyana, again a Latin American country. Okay, so his first stop is Nigeria, and there in Nigeria he was awarded the second highest national award, okay, in Nigeria by the president of Nigeria. So Nigeria conferred its second highest national award, the Grand Commander of Order of Niger, on PM Modi, making him the second foreign dignitary to receive this distinction. Okay, so far only one foreigner has received this honor by Nigerian government, and that was Queen Elizabeth in 1969. After that, no foreigner has received this honor. The second one is Prime Minister Modi. So this basically highlights the deep relationship that India and this African country of Nigeria share. Okay. Now, PM is in Nigeria on the first leg of his three-nation visit. I've told you, next stop is Brazil, then third last stop would be Guyana, at the invitation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, okay, Nigeria's president. The visit is the first by an Indian PM to Nigeria in 17 years. So this is also, again, a very important factor, or an important fact that you need to remember. The last time an Indian PM visited Nigeria was 17 years ago. Okay. Prime Minister Modi said that he accords high priority to its strategic partnership with Nigeria. So remember, India has a strategic partnership with Nigeria. India has strategic partnerships with only few countries. Okay, France is one of them, Israel is one of them. So, strategic partnership with Nigeria, an African country, reflects the importance India places on Africa. Okay, all right. So, what were the key highlights of this visit? So, first of all, after the talks between Prime Minister and the President of Nigeria, Indian government and Nigerian government signed three MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, on culture exchange program, customs cooperation, which will be helpful for India-Nigeria trade, and survey cooperation. Okay. PM also announced that India is sending 20 tons of relief supplies for Nigerian peoples, because last month Nigerian people suffered from heavy floods. Many people lost their homes and their lives. So to help Nigeria in its relief efforts, India is providing 20-ton worth of supplies. Now, when Prime Minister was there in Abuja, Abuja is the capital of Nigeria, he was also presented the key to Abuja. Okay, it is a symbolic gesture of trust placed on a friend. Okay, so Prime Minister Modi was presented the key to Abuja on his arrival. Now, one more thing that you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of the historical relationship between India and Nigeria. The historical aspect, the economic aspect, and the cultural aspect. Okay, so we'll talk about this. We'll talk about India-Nigeria relationship. So what is the history behind this relationship? This relationship is 6 decades old. Okay, it has been a close partnership relationship. Okay, a strategic partnership, and this relationship is marked by two major things. First, the reason why Nigeria values India is because India had offered Nigeria developmental assistance through concessional loans, very low interest rate loans, up to the limit, up to the figure of 100 million. Okay, so India has been providing developmental assistance to Nigeria, therefore Nigeria values India. Okay, and India has also been conducting capacity building programs, skill development programs to train the Nigerian youth. So these are the two reasons why Nigeria values India so much. Plus, Nigeria also has a strong Indian community. Many Indians live in Nigeria. In fact, around 60,000 strong Indian expatriate community lives in Nigeria, and Nigeria values that. In fact, Nigeria has reciprocated by declaring Marathi the status of classical language in Nigeria. So remember this part also. Okay, so there is a strong people to people contact based relationship. Okay, and as far as trade and investment are concerned, there are more than 200 Indian companies who have invested about $27 billion in manufacturing sectors in Nigeria, and these companies are the second largest employers after the government. So the largest employer of Nigerian youth is the government of Nigeria, and the second largest employer, and that's a big achievement, second largest employer is Indian companies. So Nigeria, that is why Nigeria values India so much, because Indian companies provide a lot of employment to Nigerian youth. Okay, so this is the significance of India-Nigeria relationship. Generally, we don't read about this stuff because generally we do not pay that much attention to Africa or African countries. We pay attention to Australia, Europe, North America, USA, Canada. Okay, but Africa is also very important, and India has been doing a lot of work. India has been doing a lot of work in Africa, especially Nigeria. All right, so this is important. Keep this in mind. Okay. Next topic is long range hypersonic missiles. Now, with this, India has joined the elite club of, I've told you before, USA, Russia, and China. And this missile would be a significant addition to India's arsenal because very few countries have hypersonic missiles, and hypersonic missiles are the key weapon every country's arsenal because hypersonic missiles are difficult to detect and intercept. So, any country that has hypersonic missiles has some sort of strategic advantage over the other. Now, in a significant demonstration of India's growing military prowess, DRDO successfully flight tested the country's first long range, because we have short range hypersonic missiles, but long range hypersonic missile from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off Odisha coast. So, off the coast of Odisha, there is this island very close to Odisha coast, which was called the Wheeler Island, but now it is named Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island, honoring the previous president, the former president of India, and also the missile man of India. Okay, because he has contributed a lot towards development of missiles. So, this hypersonic missile was test fired from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off Odisha coast. It was developed by DRDO, and this test fire was successful. Now, the missile was developed by laboratories of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Missile Complex in Hyderabad, along with other DRDO laboratories. That is why, if we have to pinpoint to one organization that was responsible for this missile's development, it is DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. Now, let's talk a bit about this missile. Okay, what are the key features of this missile? First of all, let's look at the name. It is Long Range Hypersonic Missile. So long range means the distance, the distance till which it can hit. Okay, and hypersonic means speed of this missile. So its range is 1500 kilometers. So it can hit up. It can hit to targets up to 1500 kilometers. That's quite a lot. Okay, India can from here from Odisha, India can hit deep into China. India can hit in Pakistan, in Asia. Okay, so it is a significant development for India. Then it has very high speeds. Okay, now to understand what hypersonic means, you need to know what this number Mach 5 means. Okay, any object traveling with the speed of sound at the speed of sound is said to have achieved the speeds of Mach 1. If an object is traveling with twice the speed of sound, we say it is traveling with Mach 2. Thrice the speed of sound, Mach 3. 4 times the speed of sound, Mach 4, and 5 times the speed of sound, Mach 5. Okay, so this hypersonic missile can travel at speeds which are more than Mach 5. That is 5 times the speed of sound. That is quite a lot. Plus, missiles who travel at speeds lower than speed of sound, that means less than Mach 1, are called subsonic missiles. Okay, missiles that travel at speeds between Mach 1 to Mach 5, that is Mach 2, Mach 3, Mach 4, they are called supersonic missiles. They travel faster than the speed of sound. But missiles which travel at speeds at Mach 5 or more than Mach 5 are called hypersonic missiles, and they are very difficult to detect. Okay, now with this, India joins the elite club of Russia, USA, and China with this test. This test also demonstrated India's engine technology, the engines that are used to power, the propellers that are used to power this missile. India used scramjet technology. Now, what is scramjet technology? We'll discuss it some other day because it demands a separate lecture altogether. Okay, but it's a path-breaking technology which India used to power this missile. Okay, now let's talk a bit more about hypersonic weapons system. Okay, so hypersonic missiles are of two types. One are called hypersonic glide vehicles, HGVs, and the other are called hypersonic cruise missile, HCMs. Okay, so what are HGVs? So what happens is that you make a rocket travel at hypersonic speeds, and then that rocket releases that missile. Okay, so HGVs are launched from a rocket before gliding to the intended target. That is why it is called glide. It glides from the rocket. So basically, the speed of that missile comes from the rocket that was carrying it. Okay. Next are hypersonic cruise missiles, which is the Indian missile. The one we were talking about is a hypersonic cruise missile. It is powered by air-breathing high-speed engine or called scramjet. Okay, so these missiles, HCMs, are powered by scramjet technology. Now, what is the advantage of having a hypersonic weapon system? First of all, hypersonic cruise missiles especially travel at very low altitudes, I'm sorry. Low altitudes means low height. Because of their low height and high speed, it is very difficult for enemy radar systems to catch them. Okay. And if you can't see a missile on your radar, it is very difficult to detect it and intercept it. Okay. That is why having these weapon system is a big strategic advantage. This advantage was with USA, Russia, and China. Now it is with India too. So it is a big achievement for India. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to our topic number 3, which is about greenhouse gases. Okay, so why were greenhouse gases in the news, and why was this article specifically explaining what greenhouse gases are in Hindu and Indian Express? The reason for that is because greenhouse gases are responsible for global warming, and strategy to tackle global warming is being currently discussed at a global level at a global climate conference in Baku, Azerbaijan. Okay. Now, recently, a think tank called Global Carbon Project declared that India's CO2 emissions, carbon dioxide emissions from burning fossil fuels, are expected to increase by 4.6% in 2024. And this increase is the highest among major economies. So, among major economies of the world, India has seen the most growth in greenhouse gas emissions, despite the fact that the world has promised, all the countries have promised to decrease their greenhouse gas emissions. The largest increase is seen by India. That is bad news for India. Globally, fossil-based CO2 emissions, so carbon dioxide emissions by burning fossil fuels like coal, petrol, diesel, are set to touch a record high of 37.4 billion tons this year, a rise of 0.8% from 2023. Now, if this growth pattern continues, we won't be able to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement, because Paris Agreement said that we will reduce the rise in global temperatures, or we won't allow the rise in global temperatures to go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. This report says that if business as usual continues, if these things go on, if nothing is done about them, then there is a 50% chance that global warming will exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius consistently in the next 6 years. So this target of not of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2100, well, it would be breached in next 6 years. So we need to do something immediately. All right? Now, let's talk about greenhouse gases. So what are greenhouse gases? Okay. Greenhouse gases are specific types of gases. What happens is that our planet receives radiations from sun. Okay. Now these radiations are short wave radiations. Okay. High frequency, high energy, short wavelength radiations. Okay. Now these radiations are absorbed by the Earth's surface to keep itself warm. Okay. Earth also needs warmth from sun to carry on the life processes on the planet, right? So these radiations are absorbed by Earth's surface. Then the Earth's surface starts to emit these radiations. Okay. Once it gets warm, the surface of the planet gets warm, it starts to emit heat. Okay. These heat radiations emitted by Earth's surface are long wave. Okay. They are of longer wavelength. Okay. These are infrared radiations. Now the thing is that these radiations are absorbed by greenhouse gases. The radiations emitted by Earth, not by sun. The radiations emitted back by Earth are absorbed by greenhouse gases. Which greenhouse gases? Like CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, okay, chlorofluorocarbons, hydrofluorochlorocarbons, right? There are many greenhouse gases you can see over there. So these gases basically absorb these longer wavelength infrared radiations, keeping the planet warm. Okay. Now, these gases are necessary because you need to keep the planet warm, or else all life would collapse. But if these greenhouse gases increase their concentration, or if their concentration increases in the atmosphere, well, it to more warming than is required. And this is what is causing global warming. Okay. Because greenhouse gases have increased in the atmosphere, absorption of infrared radiations has also increased, which is warming the planet up. Okay. In a sense, greenhouse gases act like a blanket over the earth, because blanket traps the heat. When you wear a blanket or when you sleep with a blanket, it traps your bodily heat. So basically, these gases act like a blanket to trap the heat emitted by Earth's surface. Right? Now, this effect is known as greenhouse effect, and that is why these gases are called greenhouse gases. Now here is an example of greenhouse gases. Okay, and these greenhouse gases have global warming potential also. Okay, their capacity to increase Earth's temperature. So carbon dioxide's global warming potential is 1, but methane has more potential, 21. Nitrous oxide has 310, so on and so forth. Please see this table. But there is another problematic factor. You see, all these gases have a lifetime also in the atmosphere. Okay, this lifetime actually explains for how much time a molecule of carbon dioxide or methane would stay in the atmosphere. So atmospheric lifetime of carbon dioxide is 50 to 200 years. Methane is short, 12 to 17. Nitrous oxide is 150 years. CFC is 102, HCFC is 13, and so on and so forth. So remember these two factors. Okay. Now look, it is said that there are so many greenhouse gases, but 70% of global warming has been done by CO2. Despite the fact that methane is also a greenhouse gas, nitrous oxide is also a greenhouse gas, sulfur hexafluoride is also a greenhouse gas. But most of them have not contributed that much to global warming as much as CO2. 70% of global warming is done by CO2. Now, why is that? First, CO2 is more abundant in the atmosphere as compared to other gases. Okay, there are not many CFCs or HCFCs or sulfur hexafluoride or methane molecules in our atmosphere as much as there is CO2. The other is CO2 remains in the atmosphere for longer periods of time. The next most abundant gas in our atmosphere is methane. But methane stays in the atmosphere for 12 to 17 years. But carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for about 200 years. So that is why 70% of global warming is caused by CO2. Okay, that's all you need to know about greenhouse gases. Okay, and now let's move on to our last news item, which is Haka, a traditional dance by New Zealand lawmakers. So what happened? So basically, New Zealand's parliament actually introduced a bill. Okay, and that bill was basically, some people felt that this bill is against the indigenous community of New Zealand. You see, before the Europeans came to New Zealand, it was inhabited by Maoris. Okay, a particular tribe of who lived in New Zealand for hundreds of years. When Europeans came there, they established New Zealand, they made New Zealand their home, and now New Zealand is mostly dominated by Europeans or mostly British. Okay, but the indigenous tribes of New Zealand, called Maoris, have been given special rights. Okay, those special rights were established by a treaty between Maoris and Europeans back in 1840. Now, what this bill does is this bill is trying to amend that treaty, and that is why these indigenous people, some of whom are parliamentarians in New Zealand, these indigenous people were protesting against this bill, and they protested against this bill by performing their traditional dance called Haka. Okay, now, the name of this bill is Treaty Principles Bill, that seeks to reinterpret a 184-year-old treaty. And this 184-year-old treaty was between the British settlers who came to New Zealand and the indigenous people who were living in New Zealand for a long period of time. Uh, okay, this treaty was signed in 1840. So this new bill actually tries to amend or reinterpret this treaty, and that is why Maoris or Maori lawmakers are protesting by performing this indigenous dance. Okay, so who are Maoris basically? Let's talk about them. So Maoris are indigenous Polynesian people of mainland New Zealand who came to New Zealand in 13th to 14th century. Okay, and they have been living in New Zealand for a long period of time, for a very long period of time. The Europeans came to New Zealand in about 18th century. Okay, 18th, 19th century. Okay, and definitely because Europeans came here, there were some conflicts between these indigenous people and Europeans. That is why, to settle their relations, a treaty was signed, which was called the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840, which established some rights for Maoris and peaceful relations between European settlers, British settlers, and Maoris. Okay, now Maoris are the second largest ethnic group in New Zealand. There are some Maoris in Australia also, but in New Zealand, these are the second largest ethnic group after Europeans. Okay, so Europeans came to this country, New Zealand, made New Zealand out of it. Okay, created a new country, but they have a bigger population than Maoris. Okay, in traditional Maori language, these Europeans were called Pakeha. Okay, all right. Now, about this bill. So, what is this bill all about? So this bill basically seeks to amend Treaty of Waitangi. Okay, this was the treaty. So the Britishers signed a treaty with 500 Maori chiefs, tribal chiefs. Okay, and this is the foundational document of New Zealand. Okay, now in traditional Maori language, New Zealand was called Aotearoa. Okay, but this is the foundational document of New Zealand. It was signed in 1840 by the representatives of British Crown and 500 Maori chiefs. It promised the tribes broad rights to their lands and interests if they ceded governance to the British Empire, because New Zealand was part of and still is British Empire. All right. Now, what is this Haka dance? Okay. Haka is a cultural dance of Maori community performed by warriors on the battlefield before the war or to welcome another tribe or to welcome their guests. Okay. It is usually performed in a group and involves chanting, dramatic facial gestures, hand movements, and stamping of the feet. In fact, this dance is so popular that the rugby team of New Zealand, and this rugby team has Europeans as well as Maoris. They have been performing this dance just before a rugby match for 120 years. This dance is so popular. And this also shows that Europeans and Maoris have lived with each other peacefully. Both of them have borrowed from each other's cultures. And Maoris are totally accepted in the New Zealand society. Okay, European Society of New Zealand. Though there are some problems, there have been some problems, but still, they have lived in peace since 1840. Okay, majorly in peace. All right. So, yeah, that's about it. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching this lecture, guys. And please do not forget to revise this lecture. You have spent 20 to 25 minutes watching this lecture. Now is the time to spend another 20 to 25 minutes revising this lecture so that you permanently consolidate these current affairs in your memory. And after that, in about 50 minutes total, you'll be done for the day as far as current affairs are concerned. Okay? So yeah, that's about it. Please make sure that you make this lecture series a part of your daily routine because it will help you out, really help you out. Okay. On that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.